Okay, good morning. We don't have to be mean to women today. Yay, we can be mean to the Indians, the Native Americans. Yes, the Puritans, no one really treated the Native Mexicans very well. Some people tried, like Roger Williams and William Penn, even James Oglethorpe, I believe. And, many people tried to keep these peace treaties. Didn't really work. And eventually the English colonies and just Europe in general just took over America. Eventually these Native Americans decided to fight back. This can be expected. And this ends the Thanksgiving peace we all celebrate, or are about to celebrate. This is where it stops, and it goes, yeah, not good. This book is a pretty, good version of King Philip's War. Even naming it King Philip's War is biased. It's naming it after the losers, like they started it. The Native Americans started it. That can be argued, right? Taking their land. Mm-hmm. Well, so this is the end of the piece called King Philip's War. And we're also going to show you some videos as usual. One of the videos is from the Native Americans' historical perspective. And even that's a little biased, which is kind of cool. We got to see how the Native Americans think of King Philip's War. And it's great to get the other side. Because even though both are correct and you're hearing both sides, they both come from different takes on it. So it's interesting. It's really cool, actually. All right, so let's learn about King Philip's War. Chapter 22, King Philip's War. Massasoit was a friend to the English colonists. The first New England settlers might not have survived without his help, and they knew it. Once, when he seemed near death, a group of settlers came from Plymouth with goose soup and a broth made from the root of the sassafras tree. Massasoit got better. Just so you know, sassafras root, originally that's the flavor of root beer. And some of the root beer products, they still use some sassafras. So it's not as bizarre as you think it. I know it's a silly name. Massasoit's people, the Wampanoags, were hunters and fishermen and farmers whose lives turned with the cycle of the seasons. They were peaceful people and good neighbors. When some pilgrims visited his village, Massasoit honored them by letting them spend the night on a plank bed with himself, his wife, and two of his chiefs. A sleepover. A year after the pilgrims arrived, Massasoit signed a treaty of peace with them. For more than 50 years while he lived, there was peace in Massachusetts. But even before he died, there were some Indians and English who saw trouble ahead. Mostly it was because there were so many Englishmen and women. At first, there had been only a few of these newcomers, but soon they were pushing the natives off their land. Massasoit's two sons were troubled. Their generation was different from that of their father. They were not awed by the English, as their father sometimes seemed. The two boys were Wamsutta and Metacom, but Massasoit asked the General Court in Plymouth to give them English names, so they were named for ancient kings of Greece, Alexander and Philip. That would be Alexander the Great, and Philip was his father, the king of Macedonia. Now, I think those names were given actually kingly names on purpose, to be nice, to be respectful. But later on, it became like an irony, and I think King Philip, he was called that in mockery. Yeah, King Philip. Yeah, you're an Indian, you're not a king. That kind of thing happened. But at first, the names were given, I think, in good good stead. I think they were trying to do the right thing, but afterwards it turned out to be quite just mean. When his father died, Wamsutta Alexander became ruler. Some Englishmen feared him. They sent troops, dragged him to Plymouth, threatened him, and acted haughty and superior. Tried to boss him around. Alexander became ill and died on his way home. Metacom Philip was now the leader of his people. He believed the English had killed his brother, and he wanted revenge. Besides, Metacom saw that the new people were destroying his land. The English now called him King Philip. Some meant it respectfully, but others were mocking when they used the title. And so Metacom began visiting other Indian leaders, trying to convince them to join him to fight the English and drive them from America. That wasn't easy. There's no history of Indian unity. The Indian peoples were as different from each other as Swedes are from Spaniards, or Chinese from Pakistanis. They were descended from different peoples who came in different waves of immigration over the Bering Strait. Yeah, some people wonder why the tribes of Native Americans didn't join together right away and fight. Well, they were humans, and their tribes are fighting, just like in Europe. They were at war too. France versus England, Spain versus France, Germany versus France. Everybody fought back then, and all countries, China versus Japan, they weren't united. So the Native Americans weren't either. Eventually they did, but it was too late. Metacom wasn't ready when war began. As with many wars, it was really an accident that started things. A Christian Indian named John Sassaman was killed. Sassaman had been to Harvard and was a friend of the Plymouth colonists. Today, no one is sure who killed him, but the English executed 3 members of Metacom's tribes for the murder. Maybe he did it, we don't know. Metacom was furious. He attacked for revenge. King's Philip War had begun. It was fought off and on for 2 years, 1675 and 1676. It was horrible. If you have read about Indian wars with scalping, torch villages, tomahawks, and war whoops, you may have been reading about this war. Both sides were incredibly brutal. 600 colonists lost their lives in King Philip's War. 3,000 Indians lost theirs. 50 of 90 English villages were attacked. Many were burned to the ground. The peaceful Narragansett, who had nothing to do with the war, were massacred on their own land in Rhode Island because some of the settlers now feared all Indians. Many innocent white people were killed in Indian raids of revenge. The Indians did back then, they would kidnap the women and children and kill all the men and kind of make the women and children Native Americans in their tribes. And they were some of them were rescued at this time during this war. So this sort of thing happened. Again, both sides were brutal, but the Native Americans are trying to save their land. Indian disunity hurt their cause. Some tribes helped the English. In addition, Indian warriors weren't used to long wars. They knew how to attack and destroy in quick raids. When the war went on and on, many Indians got tired of it. They wanted to plant their crops and get back to normal activities. They deserted their leader. Finally, Metacom was trapped in a swamp where he was killed by an Indian who was loyal to the colonists. Metacom's head was chopped off and hung on the fort at Plymouth. There it stayed for 25 years. His wife, children, and other captured Indians were sold in the West Indies as slaves. It was a pattern that was repeated over and over again until the Indians could fight no more. Yeah, so it's a very sad ending to the war. And it's weird how Plymouth, okay, it's right down the street, okay, so basically kind of where you live, where the town was, they hung the head of him for 25 years. They've recently found the head in a museum. They kind of lost it. It was in a drawer in a museum. So they think they have King Philip's head now. So it's still around, but now it's, being respected. But wow, awful how brutal life could be back then. And war is just brutal no matter how you slice it. All right. Well, thank you. That's Friday's lessons. Enjoy the videos. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the work. Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question about your feelings about King Philip's War and who's to blame and why and things like that. And who was wrong, who was right. I just kind of want you to give me a general idea how you're feeling about the wars. All right.